kind of frustrated right now. I haven't.
Sorry,
hopped
I know
on
we're talking about it, and we probably could be recording.
I just hopped on Letterboxd. What the hell, you guys? What the hell?
Oh, okay. Well, we should probably start recording before Casey gets too mad at us.
It's recording. We're here.
Welcome to the Pause Rhyme Play podcast. This week we're talking Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. However, first, we haven't been doing this in a hot minute. How's it going, Josh?
It's going great. I've been watching a lot of F1 lately. It's the Monaco Grand Prix this week. Like, I'm excited for it. It's a long weekend, so no work again until
Memorial Day,
Tuesday, and today's Friday when we're recording this.
I mean, we'll see if there's
just kidding. Vince and I probably have to do some stuff tonight, but besides that, no work until Tuesday, hopefully.
Crossing our fingers.
But things are going well. How about you, Casey?
I'm in a different boat than you right now. I have given up on working extra, or when someone else is like, there's an emergency, I'm like, is it really an emergency?
Didn't you tell me that you have friends from eBay that listen to this?
I do.
You're just telling them that you don't do your job?
I do my job. Ken, you know I do my job. Like,
come on, Ken.
But my thing is nothing is so urgent as life and death anymore. They're like, oh yeah, we need to jump. And I'm like, there is a road bump, and that's how high I'm jumping. That's
right. That's what you're saying. You're not that you weren't doing your job. You're just willing to say no to people instead of like jumping
this is
through the
not
hoops.
as much of an emergency as you're making it out to be.
So if somebody messages me these days, slacks me, whatever, and says, hey, SOS, I'm like, well, you're calling the wrong person. There's a number for that. Like, I don't care like that much anymore. But I do love my job. It's great. I'm not.
We all love our jobs.
But what's
the next episode? We're gonna like log on. We all got fired.
We all got laid off, guys. So if you can, we're putting up the little green banners on our LinkedIn's this week and hire us.
If we just get enough people who see this and subscribe to our YouTube, and we can start making money doing this, then it'll be fine.
Then everything will be okay,
guys.
Yeah, the next one you log in. Guys, we really need your help.
Please subscribe.
Please like and subscribe. Ah! No, life is good. I can't complain.
Great.
Since we last podcast, I finally graduated from college.
Yes.
So I stayed in Vince's basement so I could just be up here for graduation. I took my final test, all the deets, and so life is good now.
Got it done.
Just
so much less stress.
I'm just you guys have been doing this college thing with me since we started.
I know. I feel like I was a part of the ride.
I'm not gonna lie. You started the college thing before I even met you as a person, Casey.
Oh. Yep. That's kind of the funny thing. That's the thing.
Well, congratulations, man. Lots of people go to what is the Tommy Boy quote? The Tommy Boy quote. Lots of people go to college for 8 years. Yeah, they're called doctors.
Pretty much that is actually true.
You should just say that thing. Like, I was in college for a very long time.
But I did get 2 diplomas mailed to your parents' house.
So
and
cool,
they're both
man.
chilling there waiting for me. It's like, whew, good.
Very nice.
I've finally been catching up on TV and shows and doing things I didn't have time for. So it's great.
So cool.
It's wonderful. Vince, how have you been?
I'm good. Yeah, doing great. We just got back. We've been traveling a bunch over the last couple of months. Just got back from Yellowstone last weekend. So, yeah, a little trip up there. Took the camper trailer out. It's the first time I've ever trailer camped.
Camped in a trailer?
Yeah, I never have before. It's always been throw the tent out and sleep on the ground. So the trailer's nice. It's a convenient little thing. Gas mileage sucks, but other than that, it's fantastic. It's nice and warm. We had a nice bed. It was great. It was really good. Yellowstone was fun. I saw 2 bears. I saw a wolf.
I was going to say.
Yeah, what animals did you see that you normally
saw freaking everything. I've been there 3 times in the last 5 years. And I saw more wildlife in this trip than the last 2 trips combined. Like I said, a mama bear, 2 cubs, another bear, tons of buffalo just everywhere, elk all over the place, moose, and then just randomly 2 freaking wolves ran out of the bushes and were like chasing buffalo around and stuff. It was the coolest thing. It was so freaking cool.
Dude, I love Yellowstone.
Gopher snake, saw a gopher snake too. Just wildlife all over the place.
You've been to Yellowstone?
Yeah, I went a few years ago. Jason and I went with a couple friends.
Okay.
And we went and we camped. Not camped. We stayed in one of the little places that are just outside of Yellowstone by a few miles. Stayed out there and then just drove in and had a couple days we were in. It was super nice.
I was about to lose my cool for we went as a kid because I've been telling your wife about Yellowstone. She's like, I've never been. So I was like, you went with friends as adult, that's fine.
I think she might be the only one of the siblings who hasn't then, because I think that my parents, now that we're adults and we're grown, they have a big old trailer and they've taken the kids on a trip where they've gone. So I think you guys have got to go now. Casey.
And we lived in an RV for 18 months and didn't go to Yellowstone.
Yeah,
what's wrong
I think you
with
fumbled
us?
the bag with that one.
I think we did. Actually, there's like a whole leg of that adventure that I'm like, I still want to go do. And we're like, we have a kid now, can't do it. And we're like, but we're gonna. Yeah. It's gonna happen.
But we're gonna.
Did you see though in Yellowstone when you saw all those buffalo? Mm-hmm. Did you see a man on a buffalo?
Mm-mm.
Man on a buffalo.
Nobody riding on a buffalo.
Gosh, dang it, that's sad.
I mean, if it did, they'd probably be like hanging off of one of the little horns, gored by the buffalo.
Well,
I don't know if
have you guys seen the videos of people
Yes.
going to Yellowstone just getting decimated by a buffalo?
That too. I thought you were talking about the man on a buffalo, and I was like, yeah, of course I've seen that.
No, there's like this thing. So like I grew up on a farm, right? I grew up with a very good awareness of wildlife and animals and stuff like that. The things I see on the internet of folks doing at Yellowstone, I'm like, this is a 3,000-pound behemoth, and you're like, I'm gonna go pet this, and it has horns.
Mm-hmm.
Horns.
We keep track like every year how many tourists get gored. We should start a like what are they like a bet, like a betting.
We should
pool.
just turn this into that.
into
like,
So.
Thanks for coming to our
Another
movie
person.
podcast. These are the people that have been gored by bison or buffalo this year.
How much does a gorilla weigh?
So are you curious if a gorilla could ride a horse or a gorilla
We're
could
talking
ride a
silver?
bison?
This is where my mind went.
Yeah.
This gorilla in
silverback
this
gorilla?
movie, rode horses, no problem. That was a freaking beefy, like, big old thing. Can a horse really carry that? And would it be more efficient if they found a buffalo for a gorilla to ride?
That's a good question, because I think they showed bison at some point in this. I don't know if it was this movie, but one of these movies. I swear I've seen it. But I thought the same thing because, like, one of them had the horse, and then he jumped on that thing, and I was like, oh.
Yeah, I don't know if a horse can really carry a gorilla.
Despite plenty of CGI work, fully grown mountain gorillas could not physically ride horses.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
And certainly not the middleweight of horses shown in the movies. Gorillas can weigh
just
up to
like snap that back in half.
400 pounds and would sit lightly, meaning a horse would suffer an injury carrying them over a distance. So fail.
Well, this movie's going down another star.
1 star.
1 star. No, so let's talk about this movie really quick. We're not going to go dive into anything crazy, but like this movie, Vince, you have been on like the monster train, animal train. Like you love these type of movies. I'm not talking gorillas specifically, but like you've been watching.
I mean, I did go.
I guess Kong and stuff like that is a giant gorilla.
No, I've been wanting to talk to you guys
about
freaking apes since we started this podcast. Like,
I finally did it.
Do you remember a few years back when we did our favorite movie villains? You remember that episode?
Did
this
you talk
has been
about
like
Koba?
Forever ago. Yeah, and one of my favorite.
I don't remember that.
One of my favorite villains on that list was freaking Koba. And I've been for so long just being like, one day I'm gonna open Josh's eyes, and then Cade convinces him to do it.
I'm sorry, bro.
Thanks, Cade, a friend of the podcast.
No, I guess I have the new movie that came out to thank, and Cade pushing you into it. I really didn't push you that
Which
hard,
movies have you now watched?
So I didn't see any of the original ones. Like, I know about them.
From the 70s?
Yes, from the 70s. And Cade
60s.
told me, like, the
60s.
The premise of, hey, here's like this world that they find out, and then later on they find out that it's Earth, and all these other movies are basically prequels leading up to, hey, here's how we got here. Like, they told me that, but I haven't seen any of those, so I've just seen, I mean, because this was considered like a trilogy, and it still is a trilogy, right? Like the Caesar trilogy, and then like now it's just continuing, sort of.
Yeah.
So I've seen like the trilogy plus this one now.
You didn't see the Marky Mark one?
No.
You could probably skip that one.
That one is pretty interesting.
We usually don't talk about that one.
That one's like a glitch in the Matrix. It kind of like exists here, but somehow
Joe
it
Tim
came from a
Burton
different-
directed it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of a swing and a miss.
He actually wrote
Although
the-
I did actually, I mean, I saw it at a time when I was young enough to be like, more apes, awesome, you know? And I remember thinking that the modern apes makeup was really cool. Like, it looked like a good mix between the old stuff that I grew up with that absolutely love that doesn't look like apes at all, and then you see them and you're like, oh, I can actually buy this.
Paul Giamatti is in that, right? And the one with Mark Wahlberg.
I don't remember. Does he play an orangutan?
Yeah. he's the
I did
orangutan.
not realize that was him.
Yeah.
It's been a long time
I feel
since
like
I've
even
seen
I've
it.
seen that. Like, I want to say in my
Yeah.
head.
So here he is.
Why are the orangutans the best ones?
Can't you
always,
see
though?
this in
They
him?
are. They really are. Yeah.
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 Paul Giamatti.
I forgot.
Yes, I have seen that.
Yeah, so Paul
See,
Giamatti.
Not the
Okay.
movie, but
Should we
that
start this
picture.
with my hottest of hot takes on these?
and then
Yes.
just get better. Well, I don't know if it'll
And
just
then I
get better
can
based
just-
on Vincent.
Oh, we have
Yeah.
a lot to say about this, I feel like. So-
Okay.
So
Okay.
hot take.
The animation in this movie is incredible.
Mhm.
The apes look so good.
They keep getting better.
I heard an audio clip that the director was saying that there's scenes in this movie that every inch of the scene is CGI, and it looks absolutely real and fantastic. I would probably take another Apes movie with that makeup that Tim Burton did than this CGI ape stuff.
Really?
Isn't that weird? Like, and let me explain why here. It's too real, and it comes off a little silly, in my opinion. To
So-
watch these apes walk around and talk like real people,
Yeah.
sometimes it's just like, and I don't know if this is because my brother-in-law makes fun of this franchise a lot because he just thinks it's ridiculous. Steve does. yeah.
Steve.
And so I don't know if it's been years of him being like, it's so ridiculous watching monkeys talk. I'm like, bullcrap, this is one of the best franchises ever made.
Shut your mouth, Steve.
Or what it is. But ever since I saw the very first trailer for this new one, I've been kind of like, that does look a little silly to watch these real life apes like walk around and pretend to be human and talk like humans. Whereas for me, and I don't know if it's because I grew up with the original trilogy or the original movies and the makeup and everything, I almost prefer having real people dressed in makeup than I do watching this basically video game rollout, you know? I loved the first three because there was so many human characters that kind of grounded it in realism, and then the apes were CGI and they kind of meshed really well when they worked against other humans. But when they're just like CGI ape talking to CGI ape, I just kind of like, this kind of just feels like a cheap video, or not a cheap video game, a really expensive video game, you know? And that's my hot take. I'm just like, oh, I kind of miss the makeup.
I feel like I understand that. I feel like what sets the first three apart is probably Andy Serkis, right? Like they do the motion capture stuff, and it can feel very like video game-esque, right? Because they do a lot of that for video games with motion capture work with people. And these new ones, obviously, they're doing the same thing, but I feel like no one can just do that and get the emotion to come through as well as like Andy Serkis really
He does
can,
so well.
right?
Well-
Like, and that's nothing against these new people. There's been good stuff that happened with it and everything, but I also agree with you where like at times, because, and to be fair, this is one of the things I like most about the Apes movies is that each movie is its own story, right? Like even though it follows the same trajectory and the same arc of the overall story, like each one has its own setting, has its own story that is only like, you know, that it's related to the story before, but it's a whole new setting. It's a whole new conflict, like in a very real way.
Mhm.
Like that is very cool and it's very distinct. And I love that. At the same time, I got over it pretty fast, but at the start of this movie, because before it was a big deal, right? When Caesar, yelled no finally, and it was like, whoa. And then in War for the Planet of the Apes, they kind of do more talking, but it's still very rudimentary. It was definitely weird. Like we just jumped to this one, and the guy's just like, oh, hey, monkey girl with like bangs, like what's going on? We're gonna talk like normal freaking people, and then every once in a while just like throw a weird verb in some place to make it seem like it's awkward. Like
Yeah. Or like the
Very
cadence,
strange.
like the pattern of the talking is still like they tried to make it a little apish, monkeyish, but I preferred the sign language, the silence of the monkeys talking to each other. It just made it feel so much more real than just like, hi, let's go get an egg. Yeah. I don't know.
Exactly.
It's just, it comes off just a little bit silly. And I hate that this is breaking my heart. You have no idea how near and dear this franchise is to me. Like me and my friend from high school, Kent, we got together. We haven't seen a movie with each other in years. We both have this shared love. Like we grew up watching the original Planet of the Apes over and over and over again. I wanted to love this movie as much as I've loved the other ones, but like my
You
rating
gave
was
it
like
a very low rating.
it was a way lower rating than I kind of expected to,
Say
and I
it,
went
Vince.
with lower expectations for this one too. I think I gave it a 2.5, right?
You gave it a 2.5. He gave it a 3. I gave it a 3.5.
3.5.
So
Oh, okay.
we're kind of in the
That's not too
ballpark
bad.
together. Vince being on the low, I being on the high, and us meeting Josh in the middle there. I have this hard time with what you're talking about, though. I love the realism, and actually, if you think about it from like a linguistical thing, like the evolution of linguistics, like it kind of makes sense how they would do it.
Yeah.
I do, however, think that the CGI has gotten a bit crazy too good in some ways, because I agree with you. I think when you're talking about the Andy Serkis thing, like he understood how to put the emotion and the actual sway into things, and everyone else is kind of like floating off of that now. They're just kind of like, oh, we can put anyone in like a CGI suit, and they can do it, and that's not accurate or true of everyone, because the guy who plays Proximus Caesar, he figured out the body movement thing and how to be expressive and do it. He was the best person in this whole film, in my opinion.
Oh, I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
That's what I walked out telling. I was just like, I was kind of bored through the whole thing until Proximus showed up, and I was like, whoa, okay. What's this guy? Tell me more about his motivation. Oh, the way he moves, the way he talks, his facial expressions. I was just like into the character for some reason, ready to learn more about him.
Yeah, like his stuff right there was great, and I loved it. But what's interesting is they had him, fake strawberries and cream. They had him over here just kind of like learning from a human and listening to the stories and the books and getting the information, which allowed him to be more expressive faster than the vast majority of people, right? Then you have the orangutan guy, which is Peter McCon or Peter Mackin. Like, he was really good, but he had different motivations. He's like, oh, the symbols, you can read them. He was like, so it's interesting. You think about this as like, think about this historically, and I'm saying this is such a stupid thing, but like people who were priests and who had educational opportunities, they were always the ones higher speaking back in the day.
A little more educated.
The general public, like you think about it, what did...
and plus the orangutans just are they're always smarter.
Always.
I don't know if that's true, but in the movies, they're always like the intelligent ones that are reading a lot and like sharing information, or like Dr. Zaius is like the freaking runs the camp in the original movie.
I mean, like,
the lawyer.
I think if I had to rank my favorite Planet of the Apes characters, it's probably like Maurice, Caesar, and then Rocca.
Really?
I mean, I don't know. That was off the top of the dome, but I just know that I love the orangutans. Like,
Okay.
So, yeah, but what's like super interesting to me is like Noah and his family, what did they call people?
That's cool.
Echoes.
Echoes.
Because they're from the past, right?
Yeah,
like it's
I like
kind of
that.
thing. They're in the past, so they just say echoes. But you go see other people, they know what humans are. They've seen it because of the separation and kind of the isolation of people. So it was very interesting to think about it from that perspective, which is where I sat during that thing. I liked the linguistics. I liked all of that kind of stuff. I liked how each tribe evolved differently. But it makes sense what you're saying, and I don't have anything to argue against it. But I'm like, this is where I would argue against it. But also, I have to say really quickly that Freya Allen, who I know her from the Witcher series, like she's in the Witcher. She's just the moody, oh gosh.
She's the one who plays May?
Princess or something.
Princess.
Right?
Yeah, she's Princess Ciri. But May, and I just did not like her character.
I don't think anyone did.
It's because she didn't have anything to do. Like, she was just like generic human to move plot along.
She kind of looked like a young Wish version of Lara Croft.
You just don't even like, and I understand that it's supposed to be. I feel like they thought they were cooking with her. They're like, oh, it's going to be this character, and because she's human and is going to be with the apes, you're supposed to like her, but she has ulterior motives. Like, but yeah, just nothing is happening, and you're like, I do not care about what is happening with this character. Oh, she's doing something else in the vault?
Sure.
Okay.
I was so concerned about the Eagle clan. I could have cared less what the heck she was getting with that hard drive. I didn't care.
The Satcom.
Yeah.
Well, and then, like, I don't know. So many humans have died, right? And that's, like, the whole point, where now humans, they run across, like, the tribe of, I think they call them, like, feral humans or something like that. The ones who are, like, echoes who are nonverbal and can't speak and stuff like that are basically another version of an animal. Cool. They're like, oh, this is what humans have become, but they're only very rare and in packs. And then you meet May and you think she's one. It's like, just kidding. I can talk perfectly. I don't even have any type of accent or anything. Okay, cool. Goes back to a base where there are tons of humans who are fully intelligent and speaking and everything. And I'm just like, which direction are we going?
Well,
yeah,
I don't like doing both.
Exactly.
I don't like keeping both.
Why can't she go in the vault with them? Why are they wearing a radioactive suit? Is it because those people have been underground long enough?
Which, like, I get it. Like, it's only been 300 years. I mean, I say only, but like, it's they had a vault. They survived down there. They haven't left. They send this girl out, to go do the thing. Like, I get their idea that they're going with here, but like, this is my biggest problem with the movie is like, half the movie is or the majority of the movie is like Noah, who I think is a boring character. I'm sorry.
He
Like I through the
is.
whole thing just felt the absence of Caesar through the whole thing. I'm just like, I don't really care about
He
Noah.
looks like Caesar.
He's
though.
not. He doesn't really stand out to me. Like he's just kind of boring, generic ape to me. And watching him make these discoveries of the human world was very boring to me because we just got through 3 movies of seeing the human world. And so you're supposed to be like discovering the magic of history through his eyes. And I'm just over here like, yeah, I was there like a movie ago. I saw this already. This is not exciting to me.
I used to go to the mall too, type thing.
But
like,
they had like funny comments, like when they were talking about like the airplanes, or the airstrip, the airport, and they're like, this was an ancient place. They probably had herds and herds of humans here, which is funny, like they had moments. But it was so long of him just like discovering all these things that he didn't know about that we as an audience already knew all this stuff. Like the fun. This is why I say this was so much like a video game. It's like I've played these types of video games, like Horizon Zero Dawn is exactly this game, but with this movie but with human. You're a character and you're exploring a ruined civilization, and you're going through and you're discovering that it's our planet. And as you go through it, you're discovering kind of what caused the downfall of this civilization. But we literally already know what caused the downfall of the civilization. We watched it happen. So this is just like tedious and boring to me,
And at the end, it's May and Noah, these boring characters, doing the stuff that we didn't really care about, trying to set up some big story, right? They end on these long shots of both of them, and I'm like, oh, we're going to do this again? Like, it's the exact same thing. The humans and the apes are going to fight again.
Exactly.
This was literally the last trilogy.
Exactly.
No one cares.
That's what bothers me the most is, like, we literally just had Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Like, the big question at the end of this movie is, can apes and humans live together, or are we going to have a war? Didn't we do that in Dawn and War of the Planet of the Apes? Like, we've already hashed out all of these things. So it's just like they did cool technical stuff, and I know it's really hard to, like, continue it with this world building and building a new world. But, like, the thing about it that I love about the Planet of the Apes is they usually, almost every one, has something deeper and bigger to say. And this one just felt shallow and was just like a cross-country trip that rehashes all the stuff that I already knew with characters that are more boring to me.
And I feel like...
So I feel like it had stuff to say in this way, though.
I do, and I feel like you're going to talk about it.
Yeah.
I
just wanted to interject there.
I think that this movie does have stuff to say. However, I've already watched the #1 movie of 2024 that has stuff to say about religious commentary, and so Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes just isn't doing it for me.
Wait,
we watched
the
Dune
#1
Part
movie of
2.
Oh,
Okay, we're gonna talk about religious commentary. You're gonna make that the big talking point in your movie. Don't release right after Denis Villeneuve does it.
Yeah,
Well,
how unlucky was that for them?
but here's the difference in these two films. Are you ready for it? One is on a dry, boring space planet, and the other one's in a
Shut
dry,
your mouth, Casey.
boring Earth planet.
Shut your
It's the
mouth.
opposite.
Hold on here.
It's a lush, wet jungle planet.
But here's my thing that, like, I think compares differences. This is like Denis Villeneuve speaking about his movie, right? When I agreed to do the Dune films, I said I'm going to the desert. They didn't film Jaws in a swimming pool, right? Which is what made it big. This is pretty much all green screen, right? It's all inside of a thing, and you feel that closure of the world.
It's all just computer generated. I mean, you're right. I guess they do motion capture. Okay.
Yeah, they have to do that kind of stuff. But what was interesting about kind of the discussion of this, and I agree with you, Dune was better. There is no argument about that. But what I liked about this was the interpretations of Caesar, which is, I thought, was what the big point is the interpretation of reality is interesting because, like, if we're going and looking at it from, like, a current standpoint, which I think this was the big moment that they had to shine with it, and what it really stood out was, with whatever rhetoric you choose to listen to, consume, and stand by is how your actions in pursuit of the world will be. I thought back to our favorite Planet of the Apes villain for a minute there, Koba, because Koba knows only hate from mankind, which Proxima Caesar is emulating that. He knows that if they don't get the upper hand, they will fall to mankind again type thing, and that's what he knows. And what's very interesting is we have, oh gosh, I'm forgetting this ape's name, the one who you said so boring, who leads it. Noah. Like Noah's over here experiencing it from the way of like, I know nothing of humans other than we've seen them, and they are, what did he call them? A pest.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what he
Like
knows of humanity.
That's like a boar.
Yeah, like a boar. Like that's what he knows about them. And so it's very interesting. He goes into this direction where he can blindly trust with, thanks to what's his name here, Raka is like, oh, Raka's like, these are the humans. You know, he said this, we should do this. And then he meets Proxima Caesar, and Proxima pulls him off the side and it's like, hey, don't trust him. Don't trust anything they say. They have ulterior motives. And Nova, whatever her name is, confirms and denies all of those things, all in such a weird, quick motion. So it's interesting that it's talking about that there is not black and white, but everyone is gray. And so it's interpretation of Caesar, black and white. That's the discussion, but they didn't do it in the most thrilling way. And I stand by that. It was interesting, but in the long run, I would watch this movie again, and I would enjoy it just the same. But let me tell you this. It is the 4th movie in this trilogy and the 4th movie on my ranking.
Yeah.
So, but it was it was enjoyable movie.
I get what you're saying. Like the idea of taking a prophet's words and manipulating it to in a way that in any way you want, you know, like Raka is taking the words and translating it or whatever you want to say in his own way.
Raka is treating him like a prophet
versus
and
Proximus using Caesar's words as a tool to get what he wants. Like I understand, that it's not very. It's maybe the movie's too long because it doesn't that's in there, but there's a lot of just like trudging around and looking around and stuff that's the kind of stuff that really lost me. And so I guess those messages don't stand out as brightly because I'm just lost in just like the other 2 hours of the story getting from those points. Does that make sense?
It could have been. How long is this movie actually?
It's like 2.5 hours.
It was
like
a
2.5
long
hours.
movie, and I thought it was really fun. I enjoyed getting out and going and like hanging and watching it with my wife. But I was like, this is a long movie. Like I felt it. Like my butt in the luxury seats was like, are you still here?
And I guess if we're gonna kind of put a final, or at least my final thought on the religious commentary and the extra something to say from the movies is like Dune 2 kind of alludes to religion as a whole and sort of Christianity, talking about the Messiah and stuff like that. This one kind of feels like it's a lot more directly. It seems like talking about Christianity with, you know, idolizing a prophet or person who has died, who is a good person, then using those specific symbols throughout the way, again, in multi ways and branching in different directions in order to get a few things. And so it feels like very like direct and on the nose even at times. And it's not bad. I do like what it's like trying to say kind of just about how you can do that, but it ends up like pushing, I guess, like those limits a little bit much where you're like, okay, like I get it. And this is cool to see. And I'm sure we'll talk. Proxima Caesar is definitely like that guy was a very interesting character and someone who you actually care to hear more about. And so as far as the religious stuff goes, it's like that was what was extra to say. And I feel like we covered it in like 5 minutes, where other movies where there's something extra to say, it's something that you feel like you can talk about for hours. Well, and this, we were like, oh yeah, cool. That's what happened.
Well, and that leads me to my next question to you guys. Like, why did you like Proxima Caesar, or why did you like specific characters? Like, what made the difference for you, and which scene of the movie stood out the most to you in that way? With your favorite character or with different characters?
Rocco was one of my favorite characters. I like Proxima Caesar as well, and I feel like what they did with him made him a little bit more of a divisive character, almost like a Thanos, where people are saying, not like a Thanos, like in a crazy way. I was like,
that's a crazy Thanos comparison.
But where he has those moments, a lot of times there's those moments where the villain will pull the hero aside and explain their reasoning and try to get you to empathize or understand the situation, and a lot of times you're like, oh, but you're just evil. And this is one of those times where you're like, yeah, you're doing evil stuff, but I get it. Like, you're literally saying, dude, the humans have had their time. They're trying to regain that, and I'm trying to stop it. You're going about it in a really evil way, enslaving all these other clans and stuff like that. But I get the base motive, and I understand, which is why I was like, okay, like, this is actually a pretty interesting conflict, because I didn't know if the movie wanted me to be on May's side, because I'm like, I'm not on May's side. Like, I don't really like the way you're doing it, but I'm down for us to destroy the human stuff so they can't rebuild civilization. I'm in. Like, we can do that, Proximus. I'm down to clown for that. But Raka was one of my favorite characters just because he's that slower, sort of wise, always imparting wisdom, always being funny. Like, I don't know. Raka was just like, not Maurice, but Maurice. And he's an orangutan, and he's just like my favorite character who I liked going along with. And then they got rid of him halfway through the movie. And I was like, what the heck are we doing, man? Now I'm back to just Noah and May.
I 100%
What the heck?
thought for sure he was coming back.
The whole
Like, he
time.
went into the river. I was just like, all right, Raka's going to come back soon.
Next
Where's
movie.
Raka? Raka's still gone. Like, I thought for sure he'd get out of there somehow, but yeah.
Because that
I
was-
thought he'd be at the village at the closing, kind of like working alongside them to rebuild. Like, did he join to teach? Nope.
So did you guys stay to the end of the credits?
No.
I did not either, but there is a post-credit sound, not a post-credit scene of something that people said sounds distinctly like Raka, implying that he
That he
will be
is.
back in other future movies.
Do you
Okay.
think that this? Sorry, Vince, you go really quick, and then I'll ask my question later.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, do you think that this movie's gonna warrant? I know it's doing really well at the box office. That it'll get a
Oh,
sequel.
yeah, they're getting sequels.
They're-
People come out for
They've
Apes movies.
planned, like, I want to say it's 9 or some ridiculous
9
number.
more?
No,
a
9
total
movies.
of
I don't know
including-
if it's 9 total or 9 more,
It's
but
9
either
total.
way, that means it's either 6 or 9 more. And I don't know, like, I'm not saying those have been
Well-
like greenlit, but I'm just saying like what they've said, like, hey, this is what we're trying to do is
Mhm.
along those lines. And I'm just like,
Interesting.
because I don't know if it's like another trilogy, then another trilogy,
Mm.
just to kind of be like
Yeah.
Star Wars 9 episodes. But
I read this, by the way. The director's name is Wes Ball, right?
Yeah.
I read that as Wes Borland, the guitarist from Limp Bizkit, and I was
That
like,
could be
"What?
awesome.
This is gonna be amazing!"
I'm down.
But Vince, tell me about your favorite characters of the
Okay, my favorite character. I'm right there with you. Rocco was great. He was probably the most like clearest talking ape out of all of them. But the way that actor performed, I couldn't get enough of it. Like it was a very. I swear I recognized the guy's voice, but I looked him up and I don't recognize him at all. But there's something that he just. The way that he delivered those lines and stuff, and the sound of his voice, the timbre of his voice, just matched him perfectly. And he's the comic relief, like his amazement when Nova May first talks is hilarious. Where he just has a shock on his face and then drops the wood that he's holding. Like moments like that like stand out a lot. I didn't really love the Nova reference.
What is the Nova reference?
Nova is Taylor's girlfriend. Taylor is Charlton Heston in the original series. He basically gets thrown into a cell with a native woman that can't speak, and he names her Nova. And then in the sequel trilogy, the little girl in the third one, Caesar calls her Nova because she picks up like the car decal that says Nova on it, and so it's like becomes like a thing. And so that's why I understand what they were doing there. Where it's like, oh, we call her Nova because it was important to Caesar, so we call all of them Nova because what's important to Caesar is important to me. And I'm just kind of like, we did that already, Like, I'm like, I see you're reaching for your Easter eggs, but like, we did Nova already. You don't need to do that again. But I don't know. That's just one of those side moments where I was just like, that's not Nova. We're not. That's not how we use Nova. That's disrespectful. Anyway,
Throwing shade.
I loved how they did it before in the third one in War. Like that was perfect because I expect her to show up in her anyway. Beside the point, Proximus was my favorite. Honestly, expected a little more from him when he shows up. But like I said, just the way that he held himself, the way that he spoke, the facial expressions in all the apes, but specifically in Proximus was just like very interesting and just drew me in. I like that he was studying Roman history and trying to create a civilization based on these learnings that he's getting about Roman history and pretty much calling himself like the next Caesar,
Yep.
And he was a good bad guy. I hated the way he died. Sorry, I'm spitballing all over the place here.
I
But
love the way he died. Why did you hate it?
I didn't like the eagle stuff.
Why don't you? This is the first time, by the way, in like an epic fantasy where the Eagles have not swooped in to save you and take you off across Middle Earth. They are showing up, pecking the hell out of you.
I have a lot to say about the Eagles.
But like, let me hear your 2 cents.
We can get to
on
the eagle stuff in a minute.
You don't like how he died, though.
No, I don't like how he died, and I don't. I loved his motivations. I didn't love the way the conflict rolled out personally, of just like breaking into this vault and ending. But I thought he was a good villain, and he looked cool. His crown was freaking rad. I think he was my favorite of the thing. So yeah, he's probably my favorite. I think so. The more I think about it, I think it's got to be him in this one.
Yeah, I would agree.
More
with
than
you.
the main characters that are going to continue this story on, Vince.
I just don't care about any of them. I don't care about May's story. I don't really care about Noah. Like,
I'm actually way curious about May and where
I
she
think
goes
I liked.
next, to be
I think
honest
I
with
like
you.
Noah's friends better than I like Noah too. Like, the one that's scared all the time. Like, and his girlfriend.
He's great.
I can't remember their names.
Oh, here I got him right here.
I was going to say Alani, but I was like, no, that's the energy drink I was just talking about before.
Anaya.
It's Suna
Anaya.
and Anaya.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Anyway.
I really was impressed with how each one of the apes very much stood out with like unique facial features and stuff. Like, you could tell immediately who was who, versus I feel like in some of the early apes, like in Rise, like they had to put like the little mark on Caesar so you kind of knew which one was Caesar, kind of a thing. Or like Koba was
Just
very
make him super
ugly, which
Koba
I
had
could say so
mange
much
the
about
whole
Koba.
entire series.
Koba's so cool.
Yeah.
My dog almost got named Koba, actually, when I first got him.
I'm so glad you didn't name him Koba.
He
I
was
would have
this
had a
close.
very negative association the whole entire time. Like, Wicked!
He was almost named Koba, and then I considered Nova, but I feel like that's a girl's name, so I couldn't name him Nova. So he ended up being Mac from It's Always Sunny. Anyway,
Anyway,
Slide that in
back to the thing. No, I think what's really interesting is I actually loved the opening kind of bit about the closing of Caesar's time, right? Like where they kind of like burn him down, and like I was expecting, to be honest with you, that Caesar's son with the scars across his chest to kind of like have a quick blip into what happens, like a division of the forces type thing, like the apes like separating type thing. Like I was expecting something like that. Didn't happen. Was a little sad about that. However, I love the opening scene. I don't really care about the characters. I love though that there's like this little society that's isolated. Like I thought that was kind of fun. It reminded me, and I'm gonna go back to a giant Middle Earth opera, Hobbiton, like in some way, like it's this little isolated space, and you're called upon to go on a grand adventure. I like that. I like how they're fishing. I like how they're doing the Eagles. I get why people don't like them, but I thought it was like a very fascinating thing that they'd kind of like, it was almost like they're like Mongolians almost. Like they're using eagles. It's kind of like a part of their identity. They're the Eagle clan. And I thought that was fun. But my favorite actual part of this was the same thing as you did. I really love Proxima Nova's timeline. I thought that having William H. Macy in there, like talking about how he was like, I was trying to escape and get to the coast, and I broke my legs. Now here I am in indentured servitude.
Yeah, it's cool.
Like,
it's
what-
cool that he's not just like so evil he's gonna kill every human. Like, he's smart enough to see like how he can mine the intelligence out of these people and use that. Like, it makes him like an interesting villain.
Well, it's very interesting in like the studying, the research, trying to build this empire. I thought the commentary on like you see all these like, and he like oh gosh, Noah like claims he's like, oh yeah, stolen clans or something like that, right? And he's like, no, they're like one united
Apes
empire.
together strong.
Like yeah, like apes
Exactly.
together strong, like right there. Like, but what I thought was super interesting was Proxima Caesar's like entrance into when we first are introduced to him, like the acrobatics, the theatrics of the whole thing. It felt very much like, look at me, look how amazing I am. But what you see on the back end though is like how afraid people are of him. Actually, they're not like, they're supporting him in that moment because he's putting on this big scene and they're trying to like get the energy up. But when that chain breaks and it like whoosh, goes through some of the apes, and it's like, oh man, and oh, that was a good scene, and I really did like it. I thought that, like, the one redeeming thing that I thought was very interesting about May was, like, I was like, why do you know everything about everything? Like, she knows all the buttons to push. She knows how to, like,
I assume she grew up in that bunker, and
I'm curious about it, but, like, how does she know about, like, I was kind of like, what was I telling Allie? I was like, oh, yeah, like, as a kid, she read the Arsonist Guide to Arsony or something like that, like, and stuff like that. Like, that was kind of where I was.
Yeah.
I was like, how do you know too much in all this? So that was kind of like the hard part of that kind of section for me, was that. But also because my wife and I have been so interested in Silo lately, it felt like a Silo kind of callback, like the people living in Silo.
Do I need to
too,
go
so-
back to that? Because I watched the first episode and then I didn't keep going. I think just I forgot.
Give me your hand.
I just bought the book.
Please go back.
I
We're listening to the
Okay.
second book right now.
just bought it. I'm gonna be reading it soon.
Dude, do it. It's amazing. It's great. But I liked it. It kind of felt like this movie had stolen a lot of current popular films and series and tried to combine them in some ways. So,
There were multiple times I thought that, and I can't
well, I thought
off the
about.
dome. I don't know if I can snag them, but there were times I was like, this feels like this.
Well,
This feels like this.
I thought
Yeah.
Silo. I thought Interstellar for that space, like that they're building the bunker where they're kind of like where the bunker is. Like there are so many different things. Like, oh yeah, this is this, this is this, but still, Proxima Caesar. That was my favorite character. I can't get over it. Also, I hate the gorillas. I just have to say that I hate the gorillas.
You always hate the gorillas. They're
so hateable.
They're the muscle. They can't be controlled. Like even in the originals, the general or the gorillas are usually like the leaders of the military who are just like meatheads and don't think things through and just like enforce things through violence.
Violence.
The way this one dies, man.
Actually, I love the death scene. If I could choose a
Yes.
great death scene, it would be that. But I have to tell you this. I turned out and I was like, this is just like Tarzan when he throws Clayton in all the vines. That was pretty much what was happening.
Snaps his
That's
neck.
where I
forgot
was.
about that.
Yeah, so I was like, oh, dang. So, yeah.
All right. You got something?
No.
Eagle stuff.
Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah,
gonna say.
That's where you're gonna
That's what I
go.
was gonna
Where are
go
we
Eagle
going with
stuff.
this eagle stuff
Okay,
here?
so here's the thing: the eagle stuff. I don't hate the eagle stuff. I want to like the eagle stuff is my thing. The eagle stuff could be so freaking cool. If we're talking about, the human civilization stuff has passed, it's time for this new stuff. Eagle Clan and having a group that raises birds and uses them as their ally and they go about and they do stuff. That sounds dope. And I want to know about that. Give me the lore, give me the details, give me the backstory. Use it during the story because I think that sounds awesome. But they don't. They're just like, hey, so we're the Eagle Clan. We use eagles. We're going to raise these birds and stuff like that. Oh, the story is starting. Just kidding. Other than my dad's bird coming and kind of scratching me every once in a while, we're not going to touch this until we kill the final villain. And that's what I didn't like about the eagle story because I think that idea sounds really cool and I feel like you could do a lot with that and you could make it like if you talk about how these connections are formed and what happens and how this symbiotic relationship of these birds and these apes work and you get into the nitty-gritty of that is what I think would be cool because when you talk about these like post-apocalyptic films and you're looking at the apes and stuff like that, it's like all these little details of how stuff works and the way that they do things that makes you be like, okay, that's like interesting. And I thought that they could have done that with the eagles, but it was just like, oh yeah, we do this. And then they don't touch it. And then they're like, kill Proximus Caesar. And then like that happened. And I was like, okay, I wanted to like the eagle thing. And I think that it could have been so cool, but it just wasn't utilized that much. To the point where I was like, this felt so forced and it felt not unrealistic. Like we're living in, post-apocalyptic sci-fi world, whatever. But it's just like, hey, you didn't really explain or talk about how this works at all. I don't care about it that much. And you kind of just use it as a cop-out at the end to be able to say, look at us and what Eagle Clan can do. So that's the end of my Eagle rant. I want to hear your side. Is it similar or different?
So I love the idea of using these, their connection to nature. Shows their connection to nature, shows that we've gotten away from like man's technology destroying the world, blah, blah, blah. I get it. That's cool. And I really like that it's like a rite of passage for these apes. It's a part of their community. It's a part of their culture. Love all those ideas. My buddy that I went to at Kent pointed out to me, he's the one who pointed out the video game similarities to me. He's like, this makes the perfect building blocks to a video game. He's like, even down to the eagles would have been an awesome video game mechanic where you're running around these cities, crawling up skyscrapers, sending your eagle off to like get stuff that are far away from you and bring it back, or using them to help fight enemies or whatever. It's a perfect video game mechanic. And now I can't see that. I'm just like, oh yeah, it's just this movie was just a video game set to, it would have been a fantastic video game story. My biggest issue with the Eagles is just the way they, like you said, the way they were used at the end, the way they killed Proximus was like him starting to, like I said, some of this movie can come off a little bit silly if you're looking at it, you know. And when he started singing his little eagle chant, I was just kind of like,
This is the climax.
This is really silly. He's calling his eagles in, you know. And I'm sitting here looking at like 50 apes surrounding one on a cliffside.
Yeah, I was waiting for
and like
apes together
none of them
strong.
will stand up for themselves against this one guy. Like there's a ton of them. It's like freaking the grasshoppers and the ants in Bug's Life. You know, apes together strong. This is the
It's a
freaking
sick
point of
reference,
the
bro.
whole thing. Like, if anything, like why didn't Noah unite his people and Eagle Clan come back to life and defend themselves? But no, they have to like summon their superpower to have the eagles attack him. I don't know. It just came off really, really silly to me. I was just like, if I was a bunch of these apes, or if I was just like a bunch of us and one guy that's been like manipulating us and torturing us and withholding food from us, and we were on a cliffside and his gorilla bodyguard was gone, freaking Casey, Josh, let's take this. And all you guys over here, like, let's take this guy on and push him off the thing. We don't need to send eagles at him. I don't know. I just wasn't buying the whole eagle stuff.
Can I sit on the other side of the fence from you guys and talk
This is
about
your job,
this?
yeah.
No.
I actually loved the Eagle storyline here, and here's why. I want to amend actually my favorite scene was them climbing for the eggs in the first movie. That was
cool.
actually
It was
way cool.
intense.
It was so intense. It reminded me
Good
of
start.
Vertical Limit, like the
Yeah.
intensity of that movie from the beginning. However, that's a throwback movie. If you've never seen it, it's great. You should watch it. Not really. But like what I really loved was the intensity of it. And like you see, gosh, I'm forgetting his name like all the time. Noah, the whole entire time, like kind of like struggling with his identity. Like his father is the eagle master, like the whisperer. He is the singer of the birds, right? Whatever. He is going to be taking the battalion from his father, and he's having a weird time with that, probably because his dad spends so much time with the birds, and he's looked upon as this high elder type thing. Whatever. But like what's interesting to me is like the bird pecks him and kind of reacts to him the whole entire time because he lacks confidence in his position. And his position is to raise his arm, to catch the bird, to be the holder, to be the companion of the bird, right? To be that side piece. That sounds much more than it should. But, you know, that companion to the journey. But what's very interesting to me is, like, you watch him kind of, like, crash and crumble because everyone's died. His father's gone. People are taken. He goes across this journey, gets drugged across, you know, road trip across America, whatever. And there he is, like, figuring it all out. And then there's the moment when he keeps interacting with the bird. You've come to mock me. You've come to do all these things. And then finally he says, this is the law, but the law is wrong. And it, like, he kind of, like, gets, like, a boost of confidence in a way, like, I can probably change this. I can make a difference type thing. And the bird, like, hops to him. And, like, the bird is following him the whole time. It's up there, just kind of, like, mocking him as it is, per se, or watching him and waiting for the opportune time. It's just kind of, like, it's just kind of like a lot of people would say, like, it's just the right time, right place type piece there. And so when he comes up and does this to me, it's just kind of like, okay, like, it's the transition from, like, kind of like understudy to leader. And I get that you're right. I thought the same thing. I was like, why aren't these apes, like, fighting back? However, Proxima has been withholding food, has had the military strength to do all these things against these people. Who's to say that they're like, if we do something now, what's going to happen? Like, what are the repercussions? They don't know that answer because they're apes. And that's the problem. So I'm over here overthinking that part of it, I would assume. But what I loved about it is that, like, they thought, like, the mom goes, they're not coming. They're not here for us. Like, because they've relied on their things for so long. What is it, 300 years later type thing, right? These people have developed this system. And when he finally does the chant and does it, it's him calling because he knows that they're there. He knows that they'll come. Like, that's, like, a thing. So, like, you have to sit down and compare this to, like, the plight of people in dire situations reaching out for help and saying they need help, whether it's, you know, like, we can call this another Dances with Wolves if we want to in some ways. Like, there are so many ways you can look at this. But it's more or less just like, that's the hero's journey right there, is to get to the place where you're confident in your ability to succeed. And that is exactly what they're trying to do with Noah. Noah's not a strong leader. Noah's not a strong character. He is the Kylo Ren of this universe. He's not what we deserved, but he's what we got.
He got beat up, like, every time anything happened. Like,
Yeah.
he's He's definitely no Caesar.
Yeah. Well, I actually
Caesar
love
would have been what I just described. Caesar would have got up, been the leader that they all wanted, been the guy who took care of things, and Noah just has to be like sing his little chant and summon his superpower.
But I think that's a message on like not all leaders always have to be the most victorious or the strongest. Leaders have to be them of the people is what it's showing. And he is getting them to connect with their roots of we are the Eagle people, we are the Eagle clan.
And I don't mind that.
Mm-hmm.
My opinion could be wrong.
No, you're.
No,
I
no,
think
no.
you're
It's
spot
not
on. I
factual.
think
Yeah.
you're spot on.
But that's what
you're
they're
right.
trying to say here. And I am a commoner.
You're
who goes
spot
to
on it.
movies.
You're spot on it.
Yeah, nothing
That
you
doesn't
said
make
is
it any
wrong.
less silly to me though to watch these
it
Eagles
is a video
attack.
game thing. That's why I said it could be another Dance with Wolves, one of the silliest movies in so many ways. Great movie, great story, but it's like, why did we have another movie that's the exact same as 7 other movies?
Yeah, that moment that you mentioned, that's kind of like his pinnacle, like changing moment where he's like, this is the law, but the law is wrong. And then he like calls the bird. I like rolled my eyes because I was like, what are you even saying?
That's
man?
his
Like,
Jake Sully moment, but my cup is empty.
I don't even like why,
Just
bro?
the whole thing
Like,
came off
that
silly to
thing
me.
I was just like, I don't care
Like
about
you're
this.
right. You're 100% right
I'm
in
okay
everything
with
you
it
said.
being silly. That's the thing, though. Is this is a fake movie? Like
It's
this
like
isn't real.
it all just comes down to if you buy into it or not. And for some reason, that was my I said from the get go, I couldn't buy into a lot of the stuff that was going on.
Can I tell you what I feel like as like a person who sees it from your side? Like I would love to go back to the people acting in suits, like talking about like I'm thinking about the Ninja Turtles. I'm thinking about the old apes. I'm thinking about all these things that like people put so much effort into making it as realistic, but also as like we knew it was a silly cartoon character, or like it wasn't real. When it gets so real that you have to make it like there's no what is the actual line, it comes across as like, why do we always have to be so polished and so perfect in this way? Because that's not how life in reality turns out.
There's just something about the imperfection that helps you escape into a fantasy world. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like when you watch the new Lion King movies, it's hard to lose yourself like when you watch the cartoon version. You know, I kind of feel like the same thing. For some reason in my mind, watching those original 60s movies, I knew they were supposed to be apes, even though they don't look like apes, but I told myself, oh yeah, these are apes. And in this one, like I see the apes and it just like,
But
I'd
then to see
rather
them
use
talk
my
in it.
imagination and be like convince myself that they are. I don't know. It's just I can't. We don't need to reach.
yeah,
I
watch
think
it,
I think what it is though is what this type of stuff is. Sorry, it's the idea that everything, like your imagination, we want to go to a movie and be able to disconnect from reality in that way, right? You want to
And
go and
this
use
is
your thought.
This is the main thing though is there were moments when I was able to lose myself and connect, even though I have those issues. Like when Proximus first showed up, that was one of the moments where I did not like think about any of it. I lost myself in his storyline, and there's just because it was good, like it was done well, it was interesting, and then there was and then we get to the Eagle stuff, and it just pulls me right back out. I don't know.
That's fair.
I guess like the last thing that I wanted to say about kind of gripes that I had with this movie was I obviously watched all of the other Apes movies pretty recently and for the first time. And there's
true.
a lot of good things about it. And maybe we do like little mini rankings for like
Yeah.
these 4 movies when we're done with this. But in all of those movies, and there were ones I liked more than others, in all of those movies, there was at least a moment where I was just like enthralled and I was like, this is what I was missing. Like when I hadn't seen these movies, just like some sort of big moment or something that's like, that's so cool or that's so smart that they did that this way. And I just didn't have one of those in this movie. And I'm not saying that like has to exist, but that's also definitely going to be something that pushes a movie and bumps it up.
Okay,
But
so
I know you like
I'm
that.
gonna wrap it up with my rankings.
Yes.
Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, original Planet of the Apes, and then all the sequels after that. Well, I won't even put the rest ones in there. We'll just do the new one. Sorry, we won't talk about the
You
old
can
ones.
do
We'll
that.
just
I
the
don't-
one-
Vince
the-
is-
I'm
Vince-
interested to
Vince
know.
is ranking 14 films really quick, guys.
Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, Rise, War, Kingdom.
My ranking the exact same.
Same thing.
Exact same.
I want
Dawn, here's the thing. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, though, is like, I feel like Dawn, Rise, War kind of dropped a little for me, even though it wasn't like most of the friends I saw, like, loved War, and they're like, it was this beautiful, insane wrapping up of the trilogy, and I liked War, but there were also, like, more things that bothered me in that movie than
Woody
anything that had
Harrelson
happened.
is so terrifying. in that
Woody
film.
Harrelson is I'm not sorry. It's not like I was gonna say terrible. I wasn't gonna say that. Is terrifying. I like Woody Harrelson as a villain. I just don't think it was this villain. Like something about like Woody Harrelson's villain in this one like wasn't hitting just right for me, but he still did a good enough job, and the story still took me like where I wanted to go. So I was like, I'm gonna let that slide. Like it's fine. But like War was definitely like a step below for me between the first two, and then Kingdom is like a step below those ones. Casey.
For me, it's just like 1 through 4, to be honest with you, because I like the origin of this era of Caesar, right? And I think that Andy Serkis like really defined a character that was different and new, and where they're like pushing it. And I've never felt like until this most recent film that the CGI has really lacked in the way that they've done it. Like obviously it wasn't perfect, but because it was like realistic sets, because so many of it was real and big, and it felt grand. Like I talked about that tree climbing scene. I remember watching that for the first time when they let him go and just up the wall.
Cool.
You're like up the tree. You're like, that's amazing. Like the redwoods and like kind of like the experience of it all. Like, and when like I still like, this is the pinnacle defining thing of the first film for me, is when they're going back to get in the old Woody, Jeep type thing, and he hops in the vehicle, like, cause he's like, I'm not a dog, right? Like type thing. And I loved it. So that would be the ranking for me. I'm just a fair weather fan of this franchise. Not quite as diehard as you.
No, I get it.
But I enjoy it, and it's something glad. And I'm glad you finally watched the films. Thank you, Cade. We love you. Appreciate you. Now, if you can get Josh to watch another series that we've been wanting to watch, I don't know what that is, but what's next on the list?
There's always some.
But no, I think this was a lot of fun. It was great to get back together and talk about it. To the folks who follow us, thank you so much. We appreciate it. If you've made it this far in the episode and haven't liked and subscribed to our channel, please do so. I got student loans to pay off now that I've graduated from college.
We're all going to be unemployed soon.
Yeah, we made those comments early on. But no, thank you so much for tuning into the Pause Around Play podcast. Guys, anything else to say before we go? Strike that reverse or whatever I'm trying to say?
No, I'm good.
Together, strong.
Have a good one, guys.